is Keith, Randy, Sean, help me understand what our desire is. We can jump into the manager update, or we can jump into executive session.
Your pleasure, board, whatever you prefer.
Doesn't matter to me.
Peter, do you?
I have to send out the Zoom link, but I think we're ready to go into executive session if you'd like.
My only hesitation is that I don't know if I think Lisa was going to be there for this one, and I don't.
She's on as an attendee.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to cross her over?
Yeah, well, you can, or just send her the link to the executive session. Yeah, whatever.
Okay, I'll include Lisa as well. So whenever you're ready to start, George, I'll read the rationale.
Okay. I move the board into executive session for the following purposes.
Pursuant to CRS section 24-64024A and F, for the county attorney to meet with the Board of County Commissioners for the purposes of receiving direction related to the lease, transfer, or sale of any real, personal, or property of interest in properties located at or near 3204 Stanley Road, and to discuss personnel matters, but not regarding commissioners or elected officials, or related to discussions of personnel policies generally.
Second.
I think there was something about instructing negotiators as well.
I can definitely add that. I am not sure which issue that would be, but oh, I do know. Okay, I'm sorry about that. One moment, let me just add that to it. And that would be, sorry about that. Should have it off on the top of my head, but unfortunately I don't. Determining positions relative to matters that may be the subject of negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators with regard to certain zoning matters and property matters pursuant to 24-64024 F, excuse me.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Did you, you did not send a link yet, did you, Peter?
Nope.
Okay.
Got sidetracked on that one.
Okay, we'll look for that link.
Wasn't George supposed to say the board will now move into executive session? No written minutes will be kept.
That is correct.
I'm the vice chair, so I guess I just said it.
You just said it. I think we're fine with that, and we will move into it. I'm just trying to, you may need to copy and paste the link, unfortunately.
Okay.
Hey, Beth. Good morning.
Oh,
I did not see that they started so early. Did they take care of the marijuana licenses?
they did. They approved
Okay.
it. So
Okay, thank you.
I'll get them signed. I'll put them in your mailbox.
Awesome. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I left you as a panelist though for the consent gaming contracts.
Perfect.
Is that all
And
right?
then I'll listen in on the transfer station fees discussion too, just in case they need to change that reso for any reason.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good enough. All right, and I'll go get on the other one, but you got works. You got visual and that. Okay. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Busy.
Oh yeah, I bet. I have no doubt. So, yeah. So, all right. Do you, T-Bob, do you need Julie or anybody else on the phone, or are you gonna do the whole thing yourself?
Julie has nothing to do with any of this. Basically, all I've got is that paper that I put out. You know, it's just basically letting everybody know what's going on,
Perfect.
what it is they want to do.
Okay.
So,
No, that sounds good. I just, we have like 2 lists of people that come to the meeting, and I just need to know who needs to talk so I can.
Carl's going to get in on his computer.
Okay, I'm gonna cross him over. Let's see. So let's see. And the guys should be back here in a minute. They went into executive session, so they
That's
should
fine.
be back here shortly.
Okay.
There's Carl. Okay, excellent.
Good. Yeah. Not that way. We're both.
Hello.
Oh, there's George.
Hey, Bob.
How's it going?
Sorry, Carl.
Morning.
The guy with the coolest nickname in the county, in the flesh or in the digits.
Ah,
Says Carl Shell.
He's in my office using
Okay.
a deal over here. There's no broadband at this transfer station
Yeah, I hear you.
to do the visual and the whole work, so we shuffled it around a little bit.
And we're Sean and Randy should be over any moment.
Over from the dark side.
Yes. Peter, are you feeling better?
Based on that little cough, it's slightly.
Oh, good.
Thank you for asking.
I guess since Sean's here and we have a quorum, I can at least take the step of saying that we have concluded our executive session, no decisions were made, and no written minutes were kept. The next thing on our agenda is a work session to discuss revision to transfer station fees. And what do you guys think? Should we just go ahead and get started? Should we wait another 30 seconds?
I'd give it another 30 seconds. Beth, I wonder if Randy lost his Zoom link to this meeting.
It's the same one the last 12 months.
Which,
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm gonna, George, looks like you're texting him.
Yes.
Okay.
and George, if you like, just let me know, but we can get started. There's Randy. There he is.
Sorry, I had to wash the car.
All right. Hey, and I apologize for the name change there, but Bob Tiedemann, our transfer station manager, is with us. And he's in my building using a laptop over here. So I just did not change the name on it. So I apologize there, but I think everybody knows Bob other than maybe Peter. But I will let him go ahead and take on the discussion here. We just got some issues with items through the process of this year with COVID, the transfer station and a lot of the facilities that we work with to move materials back and forth from the Front Range have definitely been under some strain through this time frame, and we're seeing a lot of price increases. So in turn, we've got some ideas about raising fees at our transfer station as well, and that's part of what the conversation will be today. But I will let Bob take it from here.
How's everybody doing today? So basically, our last fee increase has been about 5 years ago. Everything has been going up every year, as we all know. It's common for the landfill to go up anywhere from 5 to 10% a year. I do have an overall fee increase that I'm working on, but right now, one of the things that really hit us is the fee on mattresses. The landfill really doesn't want them anymore. They will take them. They are trying to send people to other places, but they are starting to enforce. And when I say that, we've been bringing in mattresses. We basically mix them in with a bigger load, and it's never been a big deal. Lately, when we've been going in, they've been checking our loads for mattresses. And they are going to start imposing this $30 per mattress fee on top of our normal load. Now, I did send out this memorandum. I don't know if everybody got that, but you'll see that in 2020, we brought in 582 mattresses. And we need to take into consideration we were not charging people and not taking stuff for a month and a half. So basically, this is in 10 and a half months, we brought in 582 mattresses. The cost, if this continues, if once again we bring in another 500, which it's probably going to go up, the cost deficit to us is $8,424. And that's on top of the fees that we already charge. So this fee increase is large, it's big. There will probably be an impact. Just off, I have a price sheet here right now. On twin mattresses, we charge $12 a piece. Mattresses from now on are $30 a piece, right across the board. I did send out the price sheet from Foothills Landfill, showing their price at $30. I also have the fee sheet here from Gilpin County, because they have been hit by the same thing. They use the same facility we do, and Gilpin County is now following suit at $30 per mattress.
Hey, Bob, I know it costs us money to process the mattresses, to transport them. So even if we charge 30, we're still losing money. Is there any appetite to figure out how to be actually cost neutral, or do we know what that would look like?
Right now, once again, I think we need a fee increase across the board. It's been a while. The fee increase that I'm looking at is 20%. If we wanted to do it like last time, we did it in 2 parts so that there wasn't such a sticker shock, 10% and then 10% again. But until we see that, I mean, you're right. Right now, we're breaking even. We're not going to make any money on that. But comparatively, like I said, right now we're charging 12, and then to bring that up to 30, just that in itself is a big, fee increase right there. Once again, I just wanted to make everyone aware of what's going on. And, the bottom line is this is a lot of, your decision as to which direction you want to go. My biggest concern here is that people may start illegal dumping them, because we have areas where people can do that. Down in the city, it's probably not so easy to go throw your king mattress off in somebody's front yard and drive off. But here in the county, as well as Carl knows, we have certain areas that wind up with illegal dumping. And so that's my only concern, about doing a much larger fee increase on this. I'm open to changing this again. Let's say you want to make $1 a piece, to help cover that shipping costs. Right now we're being charged on trash itself about $30 a ton. I do not have any up-to-date numbers as to where I'm sitting on my budget from last year. So for me to answer a lot of your questions, I don't have that information in front of me.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned that I think for us to do something less than 30 would potentially encourage people from other counties to bring their trash to us and cause our problem to grow.
And I actually believe we've already seen a lot of that, because people from the neighboring counties have found out that we're cheaper. And because 582 mattresses in 10.5 months,
Yeah,
that's a lot. So once again, to follow suit, you're talking about out of county. Currently, out of county residents are paying about $10 a mattress more than people who live in the county. So we will follow suit with this if it's agreed that we do this $30 just to cover, just so we're not losing money. Out of county costs will be $40.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
I mean,
I think so too. I mean, would love for us to keep an eye on illegal dumping. I know that your road and bridge guys hopefully tend to make observations of stuff like that as they're driving around on roads. But it makes sense to go to $30. And I agree. 13%, either 13% of the households threw away a mattress in the last 12 months of Clear Creek County, or we had some people find out that they could come get a good deal here. seems like the latter is probably the case. And I know that this is on consent agenda, which we're going to jump into here in just a minute. Any other questions on this?
Just
I have a
one quick
related-
comment. I'm sorry, go ahead, Sean.
A related question, and I hear from citizens from time to time, hey, how come you guys don't do slash collection anymore? Is there any way to revive that on some limited basis, maybe a short period of time or something like that?
The truth is we take slash year round. A lot of the confusion comes in. About 5 years ago, we were getting grant money and we were taking slash for free.
Right.
And a lot of the people around the county, and I don't want to say a lot, a few people, way took advantage of the situation. The last year it was free. We took in over 5,000 cubic yards of slash.
I remember some developers who were building on new land were bringing their slash from taking the trees down to build new homes too in Jefferson County and other places now.
Yeah, I mean, these guys were literally buying trailers to bring it in. Now we do still offer a half price slash program. It goes from April, to the end of September. So we do offer an incentive, half price, $6 a yard, which that's actually really, absolutely fair, because once again, we have to process it. We have to dispose of it.
And Bob, is that just for Clear Creek residents?
Yes, that is.
Okay, perfect. All right. Sounds like you guys are totally on top of it.
Keith, did you have something else?
I just wanted to make sure that the item on the consent agenda matches what we just talked about and agreed to.
Yes, I've
Yes.
been in touch with Nanette.
Okay,
She said that, yes, the way she currently has it set up is $30 per mattress, any size, and then $40 for out of count.
okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Bob and Carl. Let's move into our consent agenda here. Do we have any requests to remove something from the consent agenda? And Nanette, I'm sorry, before we move on, did you have something you needed to say?
No, I was just chiming in to let you all know I was here listening.
Okay. So Randy, Sean, anything you want to pull off?
Just give me a quick second. The agenda was hidden on my screen.
While he's looking through that, I had asked Jane if she could come in, and I don't want to pull this off, but the annual operating plan is a big document. It's very technical. I was having troubles understanding the ways it was changed from last year. So I thought I would indulge a little bit of time for Jane to just tell us what's new in our annual operating plan. And if you guys are okay with it, we can just do that now.
Sure.
Okay, Jane?
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you. Yes, actually, there weren't major changes to the document itself. Let me grab the agenda I had here. On page 14, basically with the methods of fire protection and suppression, the language basically was cleaned up. It was consolidated in there on page 14. There used to be sections 1 through 5, and that was deleted when they cleaned up the language. And it has to do with reciprocal mutual aid fire suppression. And it's much clearer, it's much more understandable. I think one of the key pieces in that one is at identifying the operational period. I have glasses. The operational period for the first attack. And it's laid out quite clearly in that first, the second paragraph that was added. And so in that second paragraph that was added about the mutual aid, it's defined how long the operational period is. So that took all the information that was in the 2020 AOP and consolidated it into much clearer, cleaner language. That sections 1 through 5 that were deleted, it was all incorporated in that one paragraph, and that ends up being on page 15. The other changes that were made, again, very minor, on page 43, turn to my document here to be able to be clear with you. So on page 43 of your document, what was changed there? One of the biggest things is no longer are we going to be, we'll be reviewing it on a yearly basis, but we won't really be having to send it out for the signatures and such until every 5 years, which we find exciting, but that's okay. And the way the changes are then going to be made, if there's modifications done in the meantime, it will be through a written document, and that will require signatures from all the signing parties that are now listed on there. All the signing parties are on the final page. That's the sheriff, the chair of the BOCC, DFPC, U.S. Forest Service, CCFA, and Evergreen Fire Protection District are the signatories. So if there is a change that does come up in the reviews on those intermediate years, that can be done. It's just going to be done by written permission and again, signatories. So the duration that addresses periodic reviews are still going to be yearly. I just talked about the modifications. There will be an annual review, but that doesn't require signatures. The duration of the agreement is the date of the last signature remains in effect for 5 years unless otherwise modified. So going back to that modification change. And I think that is pretty much it as far as the changes that were made. That's
Okay.
the base plan document.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I realize it's not the most riveting stuff. Thank you for paying attention to the details. And Sean, Randy, thanks for indulging that. Do we any questions? I don't have any questions. Okay. Anything for removal?
Nope.
Okay. So I'm going to read the consent agenda. Item 1, consideration of approval of the warrant register. Item 2, consideration of approval of resolution 21-24, resolution to allow special districts to pay a portion of amount due on county held tax lien. Item number 3, consideration of approval of agreement between the County of Clear Creek, Colorado and Clear Creek County Advocates for a grant under the local local government limited gaming impact fund. Number 4, consideration of approval of agreement between the County of Clear Creek, Colorado and Clear Creek Rock House for a grant under the local government limited gaming impact fund. Number 5, consideration of approval of agreement between the County of Clear Creek, Colorado and Mount Evans Home Health and Hospice for a grant under the local government limited gaming impact fund. Item number 6, consideration of approval of agreement between the County of Clear Creek, Colorado and Clear Creek County District Attorney's Office for a grant under the local government limited gaming impact fund. Number 7, consideration of approval of resolution number 21-25, resolution to revise transfer station fee schedule. Number 8, consideration of approval of intergovernmental agreement between Gilpin and Clear Creek counties for child support services for 2021. And number 9, consideration of approval of 2021 Clear Creek County annual operating plan.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, it's a mouthful. Next on the agenda, county manager updates. Keith, floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, board. Thanks, George. A few items I just wanted to cover today. And we're going to start by talking about a request that we had received a week or so ago. And I think it actually came to you, George, from Clear Creek Broadband. The request was to waive the fees. The recent zoning change and other applicable application fees that the county required of Clear Creek Broadband for the recent tower hearings. And I did include in the report the actual email that was sent. And it was, again, fee waiver in the amount of $7,800 to Clear Creek Broadband. And just a little bit of background. Historically, I don't want to say we have never, but we are very, very cautious about waiving fees, because once you start that precedent, typically you never know where it's going to end up. So staff recommendation would be to think long and hard before we waive any fees for anyone. This is my understanding anyway, is a for-profit organization. And, we spent quite a bit of staff time and resources processing the application. And I feel as though that we should go ahead and retain the fees that we collected.
Keith, can you speak, or Peter, either one of you, can you speak to what our code says on this?
I don't think there's any, I'm sorry, Peter, go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
I was just going to say, and Fred might be able to
There is
weigh in on this, but I don't think we have anything that I'm aware of other than here's the fee structure. I don't think there's any language in our land use regs that talk about fee waivers.
No. There is actually specific language that talks about that. Let me
sorry.
pull it. Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just looking for, let me just pull up the language so I can give it to you. But it's actually directly in our regulations.
Wasn't it related to other governments or something along those lines, Peter?
That's exactly what it is. I just wanted to pull up the specific language, but it essentially says that you cannot waive fees unless it's fees that were charged to another government entity. And then there are specific criteria with that as well. But I'd like to be able to at least give you the specific language.
Okay. And then I think another question is, of course, that's a policy that we set, and so we could change it. I'm not suggesting that we would. I actually think that it's reasonable to have caution when we start talking about who we're going to waive fees for. Something that doesn't, that like I love to have a policy around is like we have affordable housing developers. And you guys might not be hearing.
You sort of broke up a little.
Yeah, it was hard to hear.
Could you repeat that, George? And then I do have the language I can provide to you whenever you're ready.
Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, so the specific language comes from our fee schedule. It's in the fee schedule, and there's an asterisk basically at the bottom of it that says that a land use application shall not be considered complete until the appropriate fees have been paid. Any reduction or waiver of an application fee must be approved by the Board of County Commissioners, and then only for other governments which routinely reduce or waive fees that would otherwise be due to it by the county in similar circumstances, and during times when an application has been withdrawn and it has been found that the amount of work put into the application by staff has not amounted to that of the application. So essentially it's got to still be, it must still be with another government if that's the case. There's no other exception.
With another government, and also be it not complicated.
Exactly, and be it another government that would have waived the fees in similar circumstances for us.
Okay, so I mean, I don't see reason for us to talk about changing our policy to do a refund for this. I do want to state that I think that we could add some other opportunities in the code, and I'd love to have a conversation about it. I'm thinking specifically around affordable housing development incentives, et cetera. But that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, I agree. That's a larger conversation that we didn't budget time for. It'd be a good one for a work session down the road.
So is the board in agreement with no fee waiver in this situation? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next topic I wanted to briefly touch on is county manager hiring process. As you're aware, we are in the process of recruiting for county manager. The posting went out, I think, a couple of weeks ago. We've gotten back, as of Sunday, somewhere between 25 and 30 applicants, and it's probably more today, actually. I haven't checked today or yesterday with HR. My questions to the board would be how you would all like to move forward with the selection process. Do you want to see all applications? Do you want to see the top 5 or 10 applications for you to review and then determine who you would like to actually interview? And if, depending on how many you interview, well, that's the question. How many would you like to interview? And then I know in times past, part of the process was that we had 2 different committees, so to speak, interview panels. One was made up of the Board of County Commissioners, the county attorney, I think the county human resource manager, and the other committee was made up of a DOLA representative or a couple DOLA reps, and maybe some other folks that you all see, if you wanted to do that, some other folks that you would see applicable or appropriate on that other committee. Then the 2 committees, that it would be a recommendation committee that would make a recommendation to the board. The interviews occur all on the same day by the 2 committees. And what I'm doing is going back and kind of reiterating the process that you all went through for me anyway. And then also I heard from the leadership team yesterday that they would appreciate and recommend that there be some type of representation from the leadership team on an interview committee or some other type of representation. Thoughts from the board?
Could you remind us really quickly, maybe mostly for people listening, what was the process that we used to hire Peter? Because I think that process worked pretty well. I'm not saying we need to replicate it, but I think that it worked well.
There may be elements of it that would advise us.
Yeah, my recollection is that, we posted the position in numerous locations, as we did the county manager. This went out to all kinds of different professional organizations and that type of thing. But then I believe staff narrowed it down to a handful of people for the board to really consider as to whether or not you wanted to interview or select those that you wanted to interview. I think we ended up interviewing, oh gosh,
3 or 4?
board, help me out, 4 or 5
Yeah.
folks. And luckily we found Peter.
And I don't think the number 4 or 5 or whatever is necessarily magical. I think when you guys look at it, you'll probably see a pretty obvious point to draw the line.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. I mean, I would say it's probably a max of 10 or something like that if we have a really good turnout. And I wouldn't mind reading through 10 applications.
Okay.
And then we can figure out from that how many we actually want to interview, I think, once we see the breadth. And if you happen to have, and to be quite honest, if you've got 13 great ones, then
Yeah.
I mean, figure it out. But I'd kind of like to see everybody that's promising, I think.
Yeah.
Was my feel. I don't know how the other 2 guys feel. But.
I agree. And I like the idea of making this an inclusive process. I mean, at least at some level, I believe the final decision rests with the 3 of us. It'll be our direct report, but in terms of incorporating feedback from the leadership team and from DOLA. I'm personally open to all of that.
Yeah, I kind of like what you did there with the DOLA panel on the side, but as a separate panel, and then we come together and then so that we get two different reads. And then as far as the BOCC County Attorney and HR Director, I don't know what the expansion of that would be. I would hope it wouldn't be really large, you know, but if there's someone else that really, you know, jumps out, I don't know who that would be or what George and Sean think.
It's hard for me to think about someone else in our organization that we would want to put there. You know, it's one of those, if you start inviting division directors, where do you stop? One person who, just because she works and has worked so closely with county managers and has been involved in administration so heavily, is Beth. That might be the only person I can pull out of a hat. And I see her going, oh, don't make me. The other thing is I would like to be able to read the applications as they come in, but I don't think that I need to be part of the process of weeding them out. I think I'm happy, kind of similarly to what Randy said, to have, you know, to have those applications where the minimum qualifications are met or close to being met. There's probably a lot of other stuff where, you know, it's much easier analysis.
I mean, it's up to you, George. If you want to see them all, we can certainly share them all. There's some pretty clear-cut division, or a clear-cut division, I think. I mean, I hate to put any metrics to it, but I would say out of all the applications we get, maybe half of them they don't meet the minimum qualifications. So it's easy to eliminate or reduce consideration on probably half the applications. But saying that if you want to see them all, I think it'd be very easy to share those, George, with you or to all the board members. It's up to you all.
Well, I think if you're doing one, we should all be looking at the same
probably
information. So I'm willing to look at whatever. I still think if you go through that calling process where you kind of separate into groups, and if you send everything, you could say, well, here's the group of those that we, and here are the others, because sometimes one person's concept of whether a minimum qualification is valid to overlook a particular qualification would, we might have different thoughts about what that is, pending their experience, demonstrated knowledge and performance somewhere else, if there's something. So the size of the place they've been working before and the kind of responsibilities they had.
And then I'm assuming, especially for the first round anyway of interviews, we'll do them virtually. I think that's what we did with Peter. That's what we did with you as well. I don't know if we ever did an in-person interview, to be honest with you. I don't think so.
Would have been nice.
Not in my case, but I think in the prior time that you did the selection, weren't there tours of finalists that got to tour the county before the commission came to them, or how did that work?
Yeah, there was a tour. I can talk to Kate about that. I'm not sure how beneficial it was, to be honest with you. When I was hired, I was part of that tour. I already had done my due diligence, and I was pretty familiar with Clear Creek County and the different parts of the county. But I suppose for someone coming, if there's a candidate coming in from out of state or something, it might be beneficial. But we can, the board really wasn't part of any of the tours. That was more of a staff thing.
Okay, and I just so you know, I tend to agree with Keith on that. I did, in my case, I just came up and toured the county a couple times just to get familiar. And I do think there is something to be said about an applicant that at least makes that effort as opposed to it being done for them. It's just something I think it makes sense. You'd want somebody.
I agree.
Hi, Beth.
Hey, Dr. Ryan just came in and said you can do in-person interviews for the finalists. So he just asked me to pass that on.
Okay. Thank you.
That sounds like something that we don't have to get into right now.
No.
I feel like, Keith, you might have what you need as far as how
Yeah.
we're starting this process and what the panels are.
Yeah, I did see a question from Corinne regarding public forum. And again, I'll let that percolate with the board.
I like the idea. I like the idea of maybe selecting some finalists and having the finalists do something like that. I thought what Idaho Springs did was really great. And I think you guys might not be hearing me.
No, we are. No, we'll take that into consideration.
Yeah, my thought on that, I like input. I like people to express their preferences. Probably I personally am unwilling to abdicate my vote and my responsibility and control over who we select.
Right.
Yeah, and I watched kind of closely what Idaho Springs did, knowing that we might be thinking about applying it here. And they had a forum where the community got to ask questions. In that forum, questions were brought up that I hadn't thought of. The same thing might happen for the county manager position. And then it's not like they held a vote at the end of the thing. They just, city council sat there and listened to them answer the questions from the public. And then within about 48 hours, they'd made a decision. It was the final step in the process.
I think that's reasonable.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration for sure. As far as we don't need to decide that today, but appreciate your feedback and input on that. Okay. Next item, I did get a text from Kate. She says we are up to 27 applicants. So there's a few that I haven't even seen yet.
Sounds like they're flying in.
Flying in, yeah. Infrastructure bill. We received a request, I think it was from Congressman Negus's office here a week or two ago, wanting us to think about if there was to be an infrastructure bill, what that would look like and what type of projects Clear Creek County might have on our radar screen. Randy and I actually talked about it, I think a week or so ago, and there's a couple different thoughts. One would be, are we talking kind of on just a county basis or on more of a regional basis? So that's one question. And I did get some feedback from a few of the leadership team members and I think maybe some others. And I listed those out on the manager report that I had sent to you, I think over the weekend. But there's a number of projects that have been identified. Childcare is one of them. Randy, I think some of these are yours. Funding for recreation-based infrastructure grants, upgrade local and state roads ranging from Mount Evans to Stevens Gulch for trailhead amenities. Closing the funding gap on the Floyd Hill I-70 project. Funding for a pavement-based micro-transit pilot project to enhance mobility and decongestion on arteries like I-70. Funding projects like Idaho Springs Parking Mobility Hub Transit Center. Greenway funding. Another one was just consider the demand for reliable connectivity throughout the county. We're talking broadband and cell phone connectivity. Another thought was, well, we could just include the entire road and bridge list of capital projects. Another that we don't want to lose sight of is a coroner facility. Again, all these being infrastructure in some form or fashion. So that's what I have. I'm not sure, board, how you would like to either prioritize or how we want to get back to Negus's office. And I'm not, they gave us virtually no criteria. It was pretty much just give us your brainstorm list.
Some of the stuff I tossed in there on the larger scale micro transit and recreation stuff were because I'm aware of some funding opportunities that are tied in with federal funds that the state's looking for that would take place in our county, in our region right now. So it's just to make sure it's on his radar for support because they're pretty big enhancements. There was some stuff that was brought to me about some there's some grant applications going in from CDOT for I-70 on the mountain corridor right here on the microtransit stuff. And then there's some Department of Natural Resources and state stuff going into the feds for some grants for the recreation stuff with some targeted spots for Clear Creek County on their list. And so just having support for that, if they're funding those kinds of things, making sure they're looking at the ones that can benefit us was the reason I put those on the list. Building his support for stuff that's already in the works and putting it on his radar.
I was just going to say, I think you hit on something really key, Keith, and in some respects, I would almost like to have one category of the highest priority and put the Floyd Hill funding there, and then maybe have two other categories for kind of like what's just right behind Floyd Hill, because I think a possible risk of throwing the kitchen sink is, it just becomes overwhelming, and at least in my mind, the Floyd Hill problem is has a huge sticker shock associated with it. But if they're really going to do some kind of an aggressive nationwide infrastructure bill, it would be hard to imagine that's not something that certainly has statewide impacts and maybe even to some degree national impacts. And it would seem like it would be a really good candidate. And I would hate to dilute it by throwing too much stuff next to it. So maybe we can create a couple of categories if Randy and George agree.
I think that sounds reasonable. And I think that it's my read on the meeting that I attended. Every county that touches I-70 mentioned the Floyd Hill project. So I think your read is spot on. It's at the top of Nagusa's list already. That said, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't treat it like it's at the top of our list too.
Right.
Some other thoughts. Okay.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Some other thoughts. The microtransit pilot projects is something that I really like. I think as it relates to Idaho Springs Parking Transit Center, I think including in our letter that we want them to consider what comes out of the municipalities within Clear Creek is about as far as we need to go. Because we've got, in special districts, we've got a special district in St. Mary's that might have a really great project to pitch. We know the Empire could use some investment in their water treatment systems and water acquisition systems. That's probably not the right term. And then I think internet broadband should stay on there. What's not on this list that I would like to see on this list is just a general exhortation for renewable energy generation and improvements to energy transmission. I think that that's an issue that touches everybody everywhere, including us here. Maybe that's the end of my filibuster for right now.
Yeah, and I think I agree with Sean. And when I threw stuff out, it was just kind of as it occurred to me. It wasn't in an order of priority. I think Floyd Hill kind of rules the roost on these because of its impacts for congestion throughout. And I would probably, the deal is I don't want to discount local stuff, although when you get down to a particular building in the county, like the corner facility, that's a really important thing and a high priority for us. Whether that is a legitimate topic for us federal funds, unless there is some kind of stimulus funding that's coming out for local facilities that have to do with, if there's a way we can tie that in on some COVID funding or something would be great. The microtransit thing, the reason I had the Idaho Springs Parking Mobility Hub is it's a primary mobility hub. And with that microtransit stuff that's just kind of exploding at the state and federal level right now, their interest in running a pilot project on the I-70 corridor is a sort of a canary in the coal mine project for other corridors. Like if we can do it here, then we can do it anywhere is kind of their look at it. So they're really getting aggressive. And so to try to make sure it's on his radar is important. And then the mobility hub's kind of tied to that. They're part and parcel of the same thing, but I'm okay with putting that in a second place kind of thing. Floyd Hill is definitely the top and that big stuff there. And then the recreation somewhere probably below that, both in likelihood and we're already getting communication from the feds and the state on the microtransit, so we know it's there. So we just want Joe to vote yes if he has a vote on it.
Randy, I tend to agree with you with regards to the coroner facility. I mean, there's a lot of sort of county capital needs that we could start throwing on this list. I mean, we're building a healthcare center, right? I mean, that's a broad definition of infrastructure is inclusive of those things. But it seems like pushing the envelope a little bit around what I know this bill has been talking about, which is energy, transportation, internet, largely.
Mhm.
Plus, I don't think this board has really had a robust conversation about what our preferences are with respect to where to take the coroner's function. I mean, at one end of the spectrum, you can do the statutory minimum and outsource to other counties, and at the other end, you can become a regional center and be an outsourcing provider for other counties. And I don't know that we've ever really talked about that in a meaningful way.
And they do emphasized it's not like projects have to be shovel ready for us to say that this is something that's on our radar, but a facility that we're not sure what the size is, what the location is, etc., seems like a stretch.
Yeah, and it's when we're seeking federal funds, and putting it on a congressman's dashboard, especially, it's probably too far in the weeds for him at this time.
And by the way,
unless there's a COVID list that we can get, but I think that's a different process than talking to your congressman, is making sure we get on another stimulus funding. As a stimulus funding comes and we have to make a list of expenditures for a particular targeted fund that we see, that's kind of where it seems to me that those details would fall.
and yeah, the last thing I'll say about that is I don't see any reason why we shouldn't re-engage in that conversation sooner rather than later. I think we talked about it a little bit in the past. We looked at some proposals, and then I think it hasn't really received much attention, and that's
No, we owe it.
not a good thing.
Yeah.
Sean, I think you're right. I mean, we need to give some clarity on what we're thinking on that one. I know, like, for example, at one point they were talking about the LDS church, and now the LDS church conversation has got another direction.
Staff's been doing a little bit of continuing to do a little bit of due diligence on the coroner office. I know Beth has been involved, reaching out to I think Iconergy was one of the contractors that we've been talking to, just to see what it would look like in different potential locations. But you're right. I think we need to kind of bundle up what we've got so far and bring that back for a conversation with the commissioner. So I made a note of that here. We'll certainly do that. I think I've got what I need. George, I will take a stab at drafting a letter, and I'll share it with all of you. And if you see something you want modified, changed, added, deleted, feel free to do so. But I'll try to draft up a letter here in the not too distant future that we're comfortable with, that we can send on to Nagusa's office. I'm not aware of any hard and fast timeline. George, are you on this?
No, the general indication I got is that the sooner we start communicating this stuff, the better off we are.
Okay.
And we'll probably have other opportunities to get more specific.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't want to basically share this with our entire congressional delegation and not just Nagusa's office?
We could.
No, there's
It's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So whatever we put together, if we put together a narrative or a matrix that really kind of explains these things out, and like a position paper, policy agenda, if you will, then it should be distributed widely if it's ready for prime time with Joe, rather than just some talking points on a piece of paper in front of us. Then if it's a document we submit to him, we should submit it to everyone.
Okay.
And I'm looking at my notes here. The only unsaid thing that I have written down is we referenced the road and bridge list of capital projects. I think it's great to include those. Maybe not the entire list. I think the last item on that list is a road that we just paved a couple of years ago. Because that's a out through 2040 list. And so we might just want to look a little bit deeper than that top level number.
Yeah, and we might actually think of it because of the size of the detail, the granularity at which he can even look, for us to specify all these different roads and a whole list of roads on a federal funding package is more the concept that in a lot of, certainly in Colorado, we've got a really big issue with transportation funding here, and we have deals that are made at the legislature, or more like arm wrestling contests between Metro Mayor's Caucus and DRCOG and the legislature and the governor over where the money comes from and where the money goes and gets spent. But the dynamics have been, sorry about that. The dynamics have been such that the rural outlying areas of the state have been left hung out to dry. The road and bridge departments of small counties especially have been hung out, that aren't within those MPOs where they're receiving those funds through the MPOs, the lion's share of it, are hung out to dry. And so federal stimulus funding to help communities recover from COVID or whatever's going on would be well advised to pump some money into those smaller communities that are not getting it from the large transportation sources. And that's really the message on road and bridge from us, is that, HUTF formulas and stuff like that aren't working when the lion's share of the money, especially new money, is flowing back into the urban areas.
Yeah, I think George makes a good point. I don't know if we draw the line at 10 years or some number, but a big bill like this probably not likely to happen again in 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the roads that are currently in a position that are in need of maintenance, right? Like I think there's probably a lot of them, and we think that we can endure, and we know we have to endure poor quality while we build revenues to get projects done, right? But in the context of a stimulus bill, which are the roads that we would do this year if we needed to? Obviously, the Fall River Road isn't one of them, and there's probably some others that aren't either.
Yeah.
And I agree with Randy. No reason to provide the whole list, but make sure that top level number is defensible.
Okay, I'll work with Carl on maybe coming up with appropriate road bridge projects and cost estimates. There's a couple other items I just wanted to quickly cover. This is more of a reminder. We don't need to talk about it right now, but I did send to you a list of all of our upcoming topics that we want to talk to the board on, whether it be policy discussions or project discussions or other kinds of updates. So again, in my manager report email, I included that document. Just take a look at that and make sure you're comfortable with what we included. Please, if there's something that we missed, let us know. It's a work in progress. We're constantly modifying that list, but I think it provides a good framework of what we would like to cover with the board essentially in the next 6 months, so to speak, on board agendas. And we want to get this list put together so that we can actually put it on our calendars, on board agendas over the next 4 to 6 months and beyond. But so that's just a reminder for you all to take a look at that matrix and let us know if there's anything that we need to modify. I asked the same thing of our leadership team yesterday. I asked them to respond back to me by the end of this week if there was something they'd like to see changed on that matrix. Project support. We got a request that we have a vacancy on project support, and Troy Erickson, who is currently the chairman of, I'm looking at this email. He's board of director chairman. He asked to be appointed as the county at-large position, I believe. Beth, correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm trying to understand this email.
Right now, Troy is the county at-large position.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And we have a position on that board of directors that allows the county commissioners to appoint to that board. And our representative that we appointed a year or two ago has resigned. Christy Plinter, and so she has stepped down, and Troy asked that we appoint him as our nominee. So it would open up the county at-large position, which is easier to fill than, say, one of the municipality appointed positions or the county appointed position. So Troy was just asking if we could make him our designated appointee to represent the county, and then open up his existing position right now. So I told him I would ask you all if you were okay with doing that. It would require us to amend our appointment resolution that we do annually, but we could do that at our next agenda. Just wanted to share that with you.
What's the practical, I mean, I'm a little confused. It sounds like Troy wants to go from one board spot to a different board spot of the same board.
So
What's the benefit to the public of that? Or I guess, like I said, I'm a little confused.
it's easier to fill the at-large position.
Oh, I see.
Public, yeah.
That makes sense.
So it's gonna
Is that-
fill. Go ahead.
Do you think, Beth, that's because people are like have a hesitation to seeking the county appointment? I'm having trouble wrapping my head around how that at-large position would be easier to fill. Because if somebody's interested, and they can refer them to us.
Yeah. So it says two, all right. So for the project support board, 2 directors will be ex officio members of the board, 1 from the Board of County Commissioners and 1 from the city of Idaho Springs. So voting members manages and operates senior facilities in Idaho Springs, 7 total members, 3-year terms, staggered terms. That's what it says in their board description.
So who designates the at-large seats? It sounds like the BOCC designates the county seat, that I understand, but
And
who
that's-
designates the at-large seat?
I'm thinking that the remaining board members probably pick that person. So that's the way I'm understanding it from reading this.
Okay, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a hugely impactful decision, but I think if Troy is requesting it, he probably has good reasons, and I'm okay with it.
Go ahead, Randy.
I was just going to say, to me, it's not a contentious issue. I, have a lot of respect for Troy. I mean, the only thought I had was that we're taking a selection that would normally be ours and just toss, functionally what we're doing is we're just tossing the direction back to the board to make their own selection, pick who they want, rather than ask us to say who that is, because Troy's already there.
Yeah,
But I'm not getting heartburn over it, because I don't expect them to make a bad decision. And it's, they're also aware of who is interested. They know who's digging in and who's interested in the community better than we do right now on that subject, and who might make a good addition. So I'm fine letting it go for now. And if, we may have a reason to do differently in the future, but
that's what I was thinking. They're probably, well, they are better informed than we are in terms of filling a seat on that board.
Yep.
Yeah, Troy's been on there for a couple of years now, so as chairman of the board right now, so he's pretty familiar with who all is involved and who could be potential other board members. So
I agree with that. And Troy, I don't think that he was an employee of the county when he first got onto that board. Now it makes a lot of sense that our adult protection officer would be our designee to that board. And I think it kind of formalizes some expectations. I think in general, when we appoint people to boards, we expect that they think about our needs and desires in their actions on that board and report back at some level. And I think all of that is very appropriate. So yeah, I'm in support of this.
Okay. So I think we got the direction we need there. Is that right, Beth?
yes, sir.
that was a
The other
long
thing
way
I
to say yes.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to quickly bring up, just to kind of a report in, is the sheriff RFPs for operational assessment. We did receive a couple responses to our RFP, And we're in the process of determining how best to move forward, we being the sheriff, myself. And my recollection is that Sean had expressed an interest in being part of that process. So I've shared the RFPs with the sheriff, under sheriff Sean, and I think Peter. So we have to just determine how we want to move forward. But I just wanted to let you know that we did get some responses on that RFP. The other RFP that's still active is the one on the EMS fire evaluation. And I think that closes either the end of this week or next week. So still awaiting to see what kind of results we get on that. Also, just wanted to let you know that Peter and I are actually meeting with some representatives from Centura Health. I just thought it would be a good idea to touch base and see kind of where Centura is relative to their existing operations, the future operations at the new facility. And I believe, Peter, that meeting we set for next week. And I want to talk to them about reporting, getting the metrics that we are desirous of obtaining relative to patient loads, geography of patients, the budget. So we'll be talking with Centura next week. And I want to, after that meeting, set up a time where they will present information to this board. They used to do that. It seems like we've kind of shied away, or for whatever reason, we've gotten away from that. And I want to bring them back into the fold.
I think maybe as a related conversation, I believe George was the one who brought this up. We asked about the advisory board related to the healthcare clinic, and I don't even know who's on that board, honestly.
Yeah, I received that information just the other day. I'll send you all an email indicating who is on the board. They were supposed to meet last Friday. For whatever reason, they either canceled or postponed that meeting. And we just, once again, we need to make, and that's something else that Peter and I want to talk to Centura about, is what's happening with the advisory board, and get a better rapport with that advisory board, get a better report out on what we're doing, or what
Who
they're
seated
doing.
that board anyway?
I'm sorry?
Who seated that board? Who selected the members?
I'd have to go back and look at the agreement.
It was done pursuant to the agreement. Again, let me see if I can pull the agreement up. I looked at it last week, actually, Sean, when you had reached out concerning a general advisory board, which would be it's different from what's under the contract, frankly. But I'll get that information to you.
Yeah.
I'll just send you a copy of the contract so you see the provision we're talking about.
Okay, thanks.
And then if, as we're talking to Centura, something that we haven't talked about, and it might be less relevant, we might find out, but I'd love to know when they plan on bringing some of the vaccines they got to Idaho Springs.
Okay. It seems I talked to someone, I think I talked to actually Dr. Ryan, and right now the only places that have vaccine is the county and Safeway. But your question is valid. When does Centura think or feel like they're going to be getting vaccines at the clinic?
Well, I think George's point that they have received vaccines from the state, and they're getting them out somewhere, and this among the somewheres that they're getting them out is not Clear Creek County. So is that correct, George? I don't want to speak for you.
That is correct. And I know Summit County has been having similar conversations with them about when they plan on distributing vaccines at Summit County.
Okay, well, Peter, let's add that to our list of topics to talk to Centura about.
And just as a side note, our annual appointment list does have the clinic advisory board members on it as some of our appointees. And just so you know, the three that are on that list right now are Cindy Dickin, Kelly Dawson, and Carrie Schroeder-Yeager. So I think you guys remember Kelly Dawson. We've interviewed her for a couple positions. And then Carrie Yeager is with the new director of Mount Evans Hospice. So just to let you know, that is on our annual appointment list. So we'll have to amend that for more than just project support, but just wanted to let you know it's one of our annual appointments.
So we need to determine who the county, I think Cindy was the county representative, so we need to come up with a county rep for that advisory board.
Right, and if we're talking about the board for the clinic, it says that in the contract, I just brought it up. It's comprised of 6 members, 3 each from the county, and SAH, which is
St. Anthony's.
Yeah, St. Anthony's. And that it's a high-level decision-making body. It says the parties will appoint respective members and notify each other of the appointments no later than 1 month after the clinic opens, which of course is already the old one open.
Yeah.
And then it does list specific things that it's supposed to accomplish. Do all of the members want a copy of that contract? Because I'm happy to forward it on.
Yeah, I would.
And you can look to the section.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay.
The only other thing I have are 2 quick items. We received an email, I think from Suzanne, about fire mitigation and getting a group together and talking about some metrics and fire mitigation plans and that type of thing. And if I understood the email correctly, this group, this fire mitigation group, they wanted a half day of the board's time, which, you know, it's up to you. I think that's a little much. My suggestion would be let this fire mitigation group come up with whatever fire mitigation plan they're going to create. And then maybe we could have a work session with their recommendations or with the outcome of that plan. Unless you guys want to get into the sausage making of fire mitigation plans.
I was just thinking it might make sense for one of us to sit in on that. George, as the person associated with the fire district, or maybe myself with my fire experience. I mean, if they want that, we could offer that, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's reason. I mean, Randy might also be interested. I know you were involved in the RMRI proposal.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, my initial response was, well, if they want to do it, I'm happy to attend. I would like to attend the meeting. If more than one of us would like to, then we post it. And we probably don't want to take it half of a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think a half day is a necessity at the outset. Certainly, if we learn something there that causes us to believe that a retreat's a good thing to do on it, then we can schedule that at that time. But at the outset, I would think not. And I don't feel territorial about it. I'm kind of involved in the wildfire subcommittee and stuff at CCAT too. But there's so many people working that space right now that and plenty of spaces to work it that if one of us wants to do it, I'm okay sitting out on that one, or, as we see it develop.
Me too. And I mean, if they think they need to discuss this for a half a day, and George has seemingly volunteered himself to represent us for that half day, then maybe the meeting with the full board is an hour or 90 minutes or something a little more reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah. Or maybe his
Sounds
meeting
good.
causes us to believe and persuades us that we need to have another one. But that's a good place to start for sure.
Okay. Sounds good. And then the only other thing I have, and I promise, is, we postponed today's housing presentation because of concerns or issues that the presenter had today. Do we want to consider postponing that or rescheduling that, I should say, next week? Or do you want to do it a couple weeks from now? Keeping in mind that next week we also have Bill Downs, I believe, is going to present some information as well. it makes me no difference whether we do it all on the same day or if we want to separate that by a week.
For the sake of
Brian Roberts being one and then Bill Downs the other one.
For the sake of expediency, maybe we just try to get them both on the agenda for next week.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's back-to-back 30-minute sessions or something.
And
we
we'll
have
have to
Bill-
work with Beth. I don't know if we have,
Yeah, we Bill Downs at 9:15, but I think there's something else scheduled for 9:45. But that may have since changed. I don't know.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
well,
We
I'd
have
be
room.
willing to start early too.
There's
I'm sorry,
1:15 as well.
it doesn't have to be back-to-back. I kind of like
Right.
it when we stay on task on one topic for a while. I think we end up being smarter that way. But I feel smarter at the end of those. So.
okay. That's
Just
everything
don't
for
set the
me.
other one for 3:30 or 4 or 4:30 because they're going to get a bad deal out of it.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I'm aware of that we were going to try to talk about this week was our appointments. We had 2 interviews last week. I don't want us to jump into that conversation right now because we're about to start our COVID update. But we might, do we want to pick that one up on the other end of this or not?
We have one more soon, and we could just do all 3 of them in one conversation.
We just received application for the vacancy on the Open Space Commission, and I'm trying to, we just scheduled her interview. It's either next week or the week after.
We don't have to wait for it. I mean, and the longer we wait, the less we remember about those 2 conversations too.
Yeah. I know we have kind of a hard stop today, so maybe I'm going to use corporate speak here. Maybe we circle back on that after our work session with the Gilpin Board of County Commissioners and see if
I don't have, I mean, if we're done by 12:30, I've got a hard stop at 12:30 today that I noticed about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about that and you didn't notify me of that. So, okay, well, sounds like that's going to be on our county manager update agenda for next week.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, it's 11 o'clock. Thank you, Keith, for that update. Next on our agenda is our weekly COVID-19 update. And it looks like we don't have our esteemed Dr. Ryan on the line quite yet, which is just fine with me because I could call a 3-minute break.
He's coming on now.
Well, then let's go ahead and do, if you would all just indulge us a couple of minutes. We've been sitting here since 8:15, 8:45.
Please.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Tim, is that like a COVID beard you're growing and you're going to shave it off when the coast is clear?
Okay, we're waiting on one more here. All right, we're back. Dr. Ryan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So we'll do what we do every week. Start with the numbers. Nationally, we're still at 28 plus million confirmed cases across the US. The average daily number of new cases has slightly increased actually over the last week. Number of new cases is at 66,556 as a 7-day average, which is 2% increase from last week. Hospitalizations continue to be high, although they continue on the downward trend over the last 5 weeks, with a total of 50,000 plus currently hospitalized as of yesterday. Fatalities, we have lost 514,000 Americans over the last year. The current rate of death is 1897 per day as a 7-day average. The test positivity rate in the country is at 4.4%. Major contributing factors, same as they've always been: lack of mask wearing, social gatherings, traveling, and now what we call breakthrough cases, which I'll talk about in a minute. Colorado trend, current number of daily cases has actually slightly increased over the last week, similar to the national trend, now in excess of 1,027 per day as a 7-day average. Two-week cumulative incident rate is at 239 per 100,000, an increase from last week. Hospitalizations continue to decrease across the state. Currently 28% of ICU ventilators in use. 3% of hospitals anticipating ICU bed shortage within the next week. And 9% of the facilities are anticipating a staff shortage within the next week. Currently, there are 427 individuals currently hospitalized for confirmed COVID in Colorado. Our test positivity rate across the state is at 5.3%. Major contributing factors, similar: lack of mask wearing, social gathering, traveling. Vaccine update across the state. We have now vaccinated 913,000 individuals with a single dose, 482,000 plus folks with 2 doses. Clerk County, our case count, 4 cases over the last week, 7 in the last 2 weeks, for some total of 363 cases to date. Similarly, hospitalizations holding steady at 19, fatalities at 2. Our 2-week cumulative incident rate is at 72 per 100,000. 2-week test positivity rate is at 2.1%. Contributing factors here in our county: social gatherings, travel. Testing update. We are now fully engaged with COVID Check Colorado. We have switched from nasal swabs, as I suggested last week, to saliva tests, where you basically spit in the cup. That is ongoing weekly in Idaho Springs as we speak from today from 10 to 2. We are also going to begin testing next week, resume testing, I should say, in the jail and in the school system, and get that fully underway. Vaccine update. Our numbers have not changed from last week. We vaccinated 1,137 individuals so far with a single dose, and 816 individuals with 2 doses. Having said that, the tide is turning in Clear Creek County. We have a vaccination clinic tomorrow. We'll be vaccinating 200 individuals with 2nd doses. And then we will have a vaccination and in addition, 100 individuals with 1st doses. And then we will have vaccination clinics on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this week. We are going to be receiving a very large shipment of doses this week, toward the end of the week. We don't know exact day and exact amount, but those individuals who are currently on the list are going to be reached out to today, this afternoon, and or tomorrow to get those folks scheduled for one of those clinics over the next 5 days. The trend, as I stated, nationally and across the state. So in Clear Creek County, we are in blue and have been for the last week and continue to maintain that. Although there are pockets in our state that have significantly higher levels than we do, some of our western neighbors as an example. And the trend that the state and the nation are looking at is really that 2% uptick we saw nationally. There's a sense among those who are vaccinated that it somehow means everything's good and it's good to go. We have many cases now across Colorado, 90 plus already in the last week, that are called breakthrough cases. Those are individuals who are fully vaccinated and post-vaccination by 2 weeks and have subsequently been diagnosed with COVID. So the vaccination is not 100%. You cannot let your guard down. We're not quite there yet. The 2% increase across the nation is troubling, and it's potentially could be what hopefully will not turn out to be a third wave. The variants are going to be driving a significant portion of that, given the increase in transmissibility among those different variants. So still something to keep an eye on. We're hoping that this new shipment of vaccines will help bring us up to parity across the state and get us back to where we should be in terms of vaccinating folks. So any questions so far? For those folks who are interested in getting a vaccine and are now in the eligible group, and the governor seems to be expanding that weekly, please go on to our website and fill out the Google form. And regardless of what tier you may fall into, please go on and fill that out. Do not call us and email us at this point. We do not have the bandwidth to address all of those emails and phone calls. If you're currently on the list, we'll be reaching out to you shortly. If you're not on the list, please fill out the form and express your interest in being on the list. That will go a very long way to let us know how many vaccines we're going to need in the future. So,
question here in the chat line. What types of vaccines are in the mix for that shipment that we'll be receiving late this week?
We're receiving now the Moderna vaccine and then the Johnson & Johnson or Janssen vaccine. So Janssen is the pharmaceutical arm of Johnson & Johnson. So if you hear those two interchanged. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine, we're going to be receiving a large shipment of. I've talked about it before. It's the third vaccine now approved. A little bit different technology than the other two in that it's a single dose. So it's a one and done. The efficacy rate is at 85% to keep you from dying or going to the hospital, to put it in the most basic of terms. So very high efficacy in that realm. It offers a significant amount of protection for the population. So I fully support it. It's been FDA approved. The independent advisory board has also reviewed it last week and given it its approval. So it's a safe and effective vaccine. One individual in the 40,000 who were included in the clinical trial had any adverse events, nothing serious at all. And so a significant actually improvement over the Moderna and Pfizer in terms of secondary symptoms and anything that might come of it. So.
Go ahead, Sean.
I just had a kind of a general vaccine question. I've heard that maybe it was Moderna has already figured out a way to create booster shots for the emerging variants, but I might have misheard that or may have bad information. Do you have any updates on what that looks like for people who are concerned about these variants floating around?
Yeah, no, your information is correct. It is Moderna. They have, and this is sort of the beauty of this technology, they have tweaked it to now create what is in essence a booster to help protect against the variants. We're not there yet in terms of administering it. We're trying to get out tens of thousands and millions of vaccines to the general population moving forward. This sort of information and this advancement might be implemented into the next round if this is in fact an annual need. The fact that they have the ability to do that in real time and make that adjustment is fantastic. But at this point, I haven't seen anything in terms of Moderna sending that out. They very well may put it into future vaccines that are administered in the coming weeks and months, but I have not yet seen a timeline on that.
Okay, thanks.
I see a great question, and thank you for asking it. How do you remove your name from the list if you have received a vaccine from a different source?
That's an awesome question, and I'm going to kick that one over to Suzanne. And I would ask anyone who has been vaccinated, if your name is on the list and you have been vaccinated, please follow the advice that Suzanne is about to give you.
Can you pause on that? I want to confirm before I say that, because I want to make sure that it's not overwhelming for us. If you can hold on, let me check, and I will get back to you. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay.
Perfect. But it raises a good point, because we do have in excess of 2,000 people on our list right now. And so we know factually that a number of those folks have already been vaccinated elsewhere. And so the better that we can thin that list and make sure that that list is only going to folks who actually need and want the vaccine, the better served we are, and the quicker we can get folks scheduled and make sure that the list is as accurate as it needs to be.
Okay. Quick follow-on question about that. Is there any affinity to the specific location? And I guess the use case is somebody's on our list, they got a shot at Safeway and Conifer yesterday or the day before, but they still need the second shot. Do they have to get it from the same place they got the first shot, or is there a way of getting different shots from different locations, which would argue to not take your name off the list?
Yeah, no, I would strongly encourage that individual to go back from whence they came and got the first vaccine, because we're allocated vaccines, second round vaccines based on first round allocations.
Okay, that
So
makes sense.
a one-off isn't necessarily a problem, but we certainly do not want to create a sense of, oh, I can go wherever I need to go to get my shot, because it will create significant issues down the road for us.
Okay, thanks.
I do have an answer. So in order to take your name, in order for someone to take their name off of the Google vaccination interest form list, if they've already gotten a vaccine, you can email our public health emergency preparedness coordinator. I'll give you that in just a moment. Just to clarify though, this is not to ask for an appointment or change an appointment, is simply to take your name off of the list. So I will post that in our Q&A here. It's Olivia Watson, O Watson, so OWATSON at clearcreekcounty.us. And again, please, she's not going to be able to handle hundreds and thousands of folks asking for an appointment or changing an appointment. This is only to take your name off the list if you've already got a shot somewhere else, or you're not interested in getting the vaccine anymore. So thank you for that, and I will post that in here. Thanks.
The only other update I had was around the trailer and our ability to be mobile. Hopefully we'll be receiving that this week or next week. And we have begun the process to identify folks who are homebound, who can't get out to vaccination sites, and are generating that list to create the opportunity to get out in the coming weeks to get those folks vaccinated who can't get out of the house.
Question that I have, this is a drastic increase in vaccines, and some very welcome pressure to show that we can get them out efficiently, and I'm sure that we can. Are you having challenges with staffing these sites? Are you considering asking for volunteers? Anything along those lines that you'd like to report?
We're not having any issues. To date, we have been more than sufficiently staffed. We do have a list of potential volunteers. The biggest need is going to be vaccinators. Those folks have to be vetted. We have to make sure that they actually have the credentials to do what it is they're going to do. Not anyone can stick a needle in someone's arm. So we're having to vet those sorts of folks. But right now we have a list. Suzanne is going through that list actively and reaching out to those folks to make sure that they in fact are credentialed and have the experience we need. We are also able on the weekdays to tap into CDPHE. We have in the past just to see how the system worked. And we have received vaccinators as well as data entry. Data entry is really the other sticking point. One, the person has to know what they're doing. It's not the easiest thing in the world. And we do not want mistakes. So those two we can get from CDPHE on the weekdays. On the weekends, they're not available. And so we have begun reaching out to those folks to make sure that we are fully staffed for the weekend. But no, we're able to do almost 1,000 a day. We're sort of holding it at 500 for now, with the potential that we could be getting even more vaccines in the coming weeks to where we needed to do 1,000 a day. So we're using this weekend as a runway to make sure that we in fact can do 3 days consecutively, 500 plus, no problem. Not only staffing, but just from a logistical perspective. Also taking into considerations, given previous conversations of the beautiful highway that runs through the center of our county and the traffic that it brings in trying to run a clinic simultaneously while that traffic is there. So
On the weekend, yeah.
on the weekend.
Right.
So we're going to make it happen. The team is the absolute best. And so I don't have any reservations or hesitations. We have what we need now that we have vaccines. And so hopefully moving forward, we'll continue to see this volume of vaccines.
Did you say the other sticking point when you started this answer?
You can ignore it.
Okay.
Nice catch. Okay, so we've got another question in the chat line here. It looks like somebody received 2 email confirmations of their vaccine appointment with conflicting locations. Can you clarify the location that vaccines are going to be taking place?
Yes, we are going to be vaccinating at the Dumont EMS station, just off I-70.
I will work with Olivia and we'll double check that that appointment and make sure that that person has the appropriate location. Thanks for that.
Okay. What else?
So Sean, to answer your question, this beard keeps growing. I came to the realization that the hair from my head falls and lands on my beard, and that's why it's continuing to grow, and will do so until April 1st.
Yeah. I was wondering if it was a COVID beard, like a kind of like the NHL playoffs, you know, when the coast is clear, you'd shave it off, but it sounds like it's going to be April, whether the coast is clear or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably at your wife's request, I'm guessing.
Kind of like my COVID retro haircut. Yeah. It'll probably meet the same fate.
So in a nutshell, we're headed in the right direction. We need to continue to be vigilant. We need to continue to wear masks and socially distance. The increase across the nation and the increase in this state over the last week suggests that, you know, our numbers are still in the 70,000 cases a day average. And when you're that high, the possibility of significant spread quickly still exists. We're going to need to get down into the 10 and 20,000 level before things begin to be normal again. And we can start to relax some of the things that we're doing. But until that time, while we're still at the 70,000 plus level, spring break is coming up. Travel is going to increase significantly in the coming weeks and months. So now is not the time to let down our guard, but to continue to be vigilant. And we'll vaccinate people as quick as we possibly can and get vaccines, making great progress this week. So hopefully that continues for the foreseeable future.
Tim, are you seeing any kind of, I guess what I would call finer grain data? I mean, I'd seen some prognostications back in January that as the 70 and above, and then the 65 and above, and the 60 and above, significant portions of those demographics get vaccinated, that hospitalizations and death rates associated with those demographics would fall because of that. And so I'm kind of curious, the 70,000 infections that we're seeing daily, are those different age groups, or do you have any of that data to suggest there might be some of that actually happening in terms of who's getting infected and how dangerous it is?
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of granular data to that level. There's as was expected, and as you have suggested, that the more of those folks that get vaccinated, the subsequent fatality rate and hospitalization rate would decline. And we've seen that over the last 5 weeks in spades. But in fact, or who's actually getting infected now, and are they ended up in hospitals? It's still in the 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds. Those folks are still ending up in the hospital and still dying at a much lower rate, as you might imagine. So, but those groupings and those age groups are actually feeding into the hospitalizations and fatalities still. Until we can get those folks vaccinated, we're not going to see those hospitalizations and deaths decline. I mean, we still have 2,000 plus deaths a day in this country on average. So they're not all 70 plus year olds. They're 40-year-old, 50-year-old, 60-year-olds and the like. So until we can get a more broad spectrum of vaccinations out there, or a number of people vaccinated, we're really not going to see a significant decline.
Okay. And in terms of here in Clear Creek, where do we stand with the 70 and above? It seems like I would believe that everyone who's in that group, whether has been given the opportunity. So my suspicion is the people who are 70 above who haven't been vaccinated have done so by choice and probably don't want to be vaccinated at this time. Is that true?
Yeah. So by Sunday night, everyone in this county who's 70 plus who wants a vaccine, other than those individuals who are homebound, who we're getting to, should be vaccinated. Short of that, and even in the 65 plus, we're going to get to the vast majority of those folks this weekend. So as a percentage, I don't know off the top of my head. It's a challenging number to discern, because folks can go to Denver, for instance, and get vaccinated. Folks can go anywhere else and get vaccinated, or they've gone to Florida or Arizona or wherever and aren't coming back until the spring or summer. So our indication is that we are in the 60 to 70 plus percentage of those folks. And through this weekend, we will have vaccinated everyone who wants a vaccine, who can get out of their home and get one.
Perfect. Thank you.
The way I'm viewing it, and I'm probably not the only one, is that we've got a lot of cause for good news. It's been a long winter. It's been a long, lonely winter. I'll speak for myself. It's very tempting to say, okay, cool, we're in blue. Like, let's get back to life. My own perspective, and I'm curious, Tim, how you feel about this. It seems like sticking out these next couple of months, embracing the suffering that's associated with following these recommendations, will shorten the period of the tail end of this pandemic, and that's much preferable to flirting with another wave. It seems like we could just sort of land the plane and get into summer where we can interact outside again and have a smooth exit to this thing if we can just stay the course for another couple of months. Do you think that that's right? Anything you want to add to that?
George, I think that's absolutely spot on. The quickest way to go from blue to red is to relax and to take your mask off and to not socially distance. It wouldn't take but weeks for us to get back to where we were. And I, for one, do not want to go there. And I'm sure everyone on this call does not want to go there. So continuing to do, as you say, stay the course, what we've been doing, wearing your mask, socially distance, do not have large social gatherings. All of the things we've been professing for the last 10 months, 12 months, continue to do until we can get the majority of Americans vaccinated. And it sounds like that's going to happen sooner rather than later. It's a very small ask and a very small sacrifice to continue this for another 2-3 months, because if we don't, and you're spot on, the potential for a third wave is there. We've seen a 2% increase in a week alone. And with the variant out of UK and other variants, the potential is for it to spread even quicker than it has in the past. We know that that's fact-based information. So if we can do what we're doing for the next several months, we could potentially have a normal summer and normal fall and winter, et cetera. So sticking out what we're doing and continue to stay the course and do what we're doing, I think is absolutely spot on advice, and one that I would suggest myself.
I would just say, I hope it's not that long, right? And I think the data will tell us what the right course of action is as time unfolds.
Right. So I think it's one thing that's important for everyone to keep in mind, and everyone looks at our numbers on a weekly basis and says our numbers are so low, our numbers are so low. We're not Honolulu. We are not an island. I've said this before. And so it's less relevant of what goes on in Clear Creek County, and it's more relevant on what's going on around us in the state and in the country that will eventually directly impact us. So I would suggest that you pay more attention to those numbers and less attention to our numbers. I'll keep track of those sorts of things, but pay attention to what's going on in the country and more importantly, across the state, because that's going to have a significant impact on us quicker than what goes on any given day in Clear Creek County.
Thank you. And then just the regular reminder that in a county of our size, in a per 100,000 case count, it only takes about 40 people catching COVID to start to shut down our restaurants and stuff again. So we have kind of an outsized impact on economic activity.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. I will note, Dr. Ryan, Suzanne, there's another message in here for you. I don't think we need to do anything but have you guys read that and respond to it. It's a topic we already discussed. And that brings us to the next portion of our agenda, and we see that some Gilpin County folks are coming in. That is a work session with the Gilpin County Board of County Commissioners to discuss various topics. So let's see here. Maybe we can, do we have everybody on? I saw Sandy and then she dropped off. Oh, there you are. And it looks like
Hi. Commissioner Sill will be with you in just a couple of minutes.
Okay. Let's just hold off for a couple of minutes then. You guys do your public meetings on Tuesdays too, right?
Correct. We were mid discussion about a hot topic, but we're going to go back.
I see Webb's camera is on. Did I see Linda? Is Linda waiting to get in the meeting?
Does she tend to call in?
No, she would use her computer.
Yeah, I don't see her on the attendee list. I do see Brad Benning, Beth. I think that's your county attorney in Gilpin, right?
Correct.
Correct.
I see Webb. Hi, Webb.
I was checking email to see if Linda had a cry for help or something, but I don't see one.
Well, I know we know Linda, and so maybe we could jump into doing some introductions, at least of the
Sure.
folks to Webb. Does that sound good? Okay, well, I'll start. George Marlin, Clear Creek County Commissioner, District 1. That's kind of the Idaho Springs area. Nice to meet you.
And I'm Sean Wood. I am a Clear Creek County Commissioner. I live in Evergreen from the eastern part of the county.
And I'm Randy Wheelock, and I'm the Clear Creek County Commissioner from District 3, the west end of the county, and have been working with Sandy and at NOCO, and that's enough.
Maybe Keith, Peter.
Yeah, Keith Montag, Clear Creek County Manager. And it's nice to meet all of you, and welcome aboard.
And I'm Peter Lichtman. I am the Clear Creek County Attorney. It's nice to meet all of you as well. I apologize for my throaty voice right now, my frog in my throat, so to speak.
I'm Webb Sill. I'm a Gilpin County Commissioner. Nice to meet all of you. And I worked a lot with Clear Creek County Commissioners in the period of 96 through 2004. We did Charlie's Place. We passed the James Peak Wilderness. I was very, very active with Bob Perot and the Denver Regional Council of Governments. And we had great times together at CCI and elsewhere, and had a wonderful working relationship. And I look forward to having the same relationship with all of you. Thank you.
I'm Sandy Hollingsworth, and I'm the new commissioner for District 3, which is the north part of Gilpin County. And I have met Commissioner Marlin and Commissioner Wheelock in meetings that we're in together. I've not had the pleasure of meeting the rest of you, so it's nice to meet you.
And my name is Avel Montoya. I'm the county manager for Gilpin County. And Linda just messaged me and said she had trouble getting into the meeting. So I resent her the link. So she'll be joining us soon.
I think I passed over. Sorry, this is Brad Benning, Gilpin County Attorney. Sorry to no photo, but it's for internet purposes, trying to save some bandwidth. So
We don't let Brad put his picture up.
I just don't want to show you my pajamas, so it's all right.
He's kind of a sleuth attorney.
That's right. I've been told that I have a better appearance when it's just my name, so that's a good.
Good voice for radio, right? Yeah. Good face for radio, I mean. Me too.
And I haven't met the deputy clerk.
Beth, Rick?
I'm Rick Ellers. I'm the sheriff over here. Kevin and I always talk. We like to work together as much as we can. And I just kind of stalk these meetings. I'm just behind the scenes and answer questions if you got them.
Hello, commissioners. I'm Beth Luther. I work for the county manager and the county commissioners. And hello, Commissioner Sill. I worked with you a long time ago when we did Charlie's Place. I remember you. And yeah, Commissioner Perot hired me a couple decades ago. So,
Nice to see you.
nice to see you.
So I know we did have, I think, a starting of an agenda with topics that we would like to discuss today. And top of that list, of course, was getting to know one another and spending time here to put faces to names if we needed to do that. But it looks like most of us have been acquainted in some form as we have some pretty good partnerships and history together. So thanks for putting the meeting together. Keith, or how would you like us to go forward? Do you want us to start following that loose agenda that we had put together?
Yeah, thanks, Abel. I would defer to George, our commission chairperson, and I know that we have a copy of the agenda that you all had drafted, and but George, I'll defer to you as to how you would like to manage that those discussion topics.
I think Bell's right on. We can just move to the next item on the agenda. But first, I see Linda's here. Hi, Linda.
Hi, I finally got in.
We took the risk of introducing ourselves without you here because I think you know most of the people on the Clear Creek County. I didn't know you.
I sure do, and it's nice that we have a chance to meet together. Sorry I'm late.
No worries.
Carrie.
So yeah, it looks like, and thank you, Gilpin team. You guys really put the thought into this agenda. Looks like next up is the local government limited gaming impact advisory committee. I've had to say that phrase about 10 times today. Still can't get it right. And so I know we've had some conversations about whether we want to agree on an appointment or whether we want to apply separately, and kind of curious to hear from Gilpin where you're at on that.
Well, it kind of looks like we all received the nomination forms, George. And I know that we've all had representation on this committee in the past. We had Ron Ingalls last year for Gilpin, and then I saw that Mike Hillman was a representative on there. And I don't know if you were in contact with him as far as the things that are of concern to you guys about more representation and that kind of thing. So I guess I'd be kind of curious to know if he was an effective representative for you.
Well, I think the history aside, I think that Mayor Hillman's term as mayor ends in the next 9 months. And so it looks like we might have another vacancy on that coming up soon. And I think that's important to point out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
As I was reading through the requirements that DOLA sent us, it looks like they do want a commissioner from each of the gaming counties from Gilpin and Teller. But I know that they're also striving to get representation for the contiguous counties as well.
I just want to jump in and just add that because the casinos are located in Gilpin County, I think it's important to have a representative from Gilpin County. And that doesn't mean that we can't continue collaborative discussions and keeping in touch with each other about the allocations and input that you have if you were to agree that Gilpin County would have a representative on this advisory.
I'm kind of curious to hear, maybe Webb and Beth can fill us in on, I know we used to rotate these positions. I'm not sure that that was ever formal or anything, but maybe you guys can help me understand what we used to do.
I'm not sure, George, I understood exactly what you were talking to me about. One more time, please.
Yeah, I've been told that we have a history of kind of rotating. Gilpin has a chance, then Clear Creek gets a chance. I think it was Kevin O'Malley who sat on it last from Clear Creek. Is that your recollection, and how far back does it go, and how did we arrive there?
No, I go back to the time when we used to have to beg for it. We put together a proposal and go in and beg. So no, I don't know, although I do agree with what I read from Linda's standpoint. I think there's a requirement that we nominate one commissioner from Teller and one commissioner from Gilpin. Whether or not they accept that is another horse of different color, maybe. I don't know. That's just what I read on that. afraid I don't have any good answers for you, George.
George, Crystal with DOLA said that prior to Ron Engels, Buddy Schmaltz was our representative in Gilpin. So I don't have any history about the rotating.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that either.
Did I understand there's another spot that a mayor is getting off of from Clear Creek?
I
Yes.
believe so.
Apparently not. Okay.
Well, I believe that certain cities or towns are able to have a representative, and our Black Hawk and Central City are not allowed to have it.
That's correct.
So we had one representative that represented the whole county, but primarily representing that area of the county. And then my understanding is that Idaho Springs is able to have a representative. And so they appointed the mayor. I don't know if someone else knows if that's quite right.
The composition is defined by the types of representation. There are municipal representatives and there are county representatives. And the county representatives by law are supposed to come from either one of the gaming counties or a contiguous county. So Mike Hillman does not represent Clear Creek County. He represents Idaho Springs as a municipality that is contiguous to and close to the gaming communities. And I think the reason this popped up the other day, the reason I brought it up was because we want to make sure that the county representative represents more than their own county's interests and represents our interest, for example, if we don't have one there, that represents a holistic view of the counties and the impacts on them. And we heard statements from a couple of other counties who don't have, like Grand County, there was a statement made that said that, well, the outlying contiguous counties don't have the impacts that Gilpin has. And I agree with that, especially when we're talking about the positive impacts. But I also agree that Gilpin County has both positive and negative impacts and has an example is the gaming impact funds. And I know that when there have been discussions about, for example, broadening or changing or trying to increase the economic impact funds for the contiguous counties, that typically there's a kind of a dividing line that's formed when they talk about it, wherever it is, at the legislature or anywhere else. And I just think it's good to know that when on this board, when we start talking about trying to deal with the very real impacts to Clear Creek County, which has, Idaho Springs sitting 3 miles as the crow flies from 2 of the 3 gaming communities in Colorado, and those negative impacts accrue to us as well. And so we want to make sure that the representation on the committee is sensitive to those and not obstructive to our being able to try to find that. That was why I brought it up. We just want to make sure we have a good representation going forward. And one way to do that is to rotate around through those counties, since statutorily they're allowed to come from any of those. That representative's allowed to come from any of the counties, either a gaming county or a contiguous county, rather than have to say that it's firmly cemented as always a contiguous county by tradition or something. I mean, excuse me, a gaming county. So that's why we brought it up, was to, try to achieve some balance as decisions that are made, really important decisions about that funding and stuff, impact funding especially, are advised by, this committee.
Yeah, and I was going to add that the proposed legislation that Representative Amabile proposed is seeking to bring more equity between the Teller area and the Gilpin area, so that more funding would be allocated based on the negative impacts that we all experience.
When you say you mean all the contiguous counties as well, that legislation would help?
Right, that was the discussion. So it would help all of them because they're all eligible for a certain amount. And so we've had some meetings with her just to discuss focusing on these negative impacts, because that is what we're all concerned about. is getting more funding to help support offsetting the implications of those.
I used up my quota.
I think we all have the same spirit. Make sure that these funds are used, for Clear Creek and Gilpin and there's other counties and tribal lands that are affected by this. And really the pot of money in the scheme of things, we're talking about possibly 5 million, but that might get sliced and diced at this next as they try to cut back on money. And so like this year, for instance, the award was 33% of what was the previous year. And so we might be talking about a very small piece of pie that will need to get cut into smaller pieces to spread it out. And so I think that that's just something to keep in mind. It's not going to be such that we're all going to be able to hang our head out and say, yay, this is a done deal. We're still going to have the impacts, but I think this is a good conversation simply to raise awareness that it's not just Gilpin and Keller, but the contiguous counties that also get the overflow. So my hope is that we can work together better and communicate better when meetings are coming up and input is wanted. Because I think that's one of the things that, at least in my world, was lacking. We expected the committee, the LGI to just do their own thing and once in a while toss us a bone, and really we weren't that involved. I think Ron was, but the rest of us kind of coasted more or less. So I'm thinking that this is something of an opportunity for us to get it right now.
What I think I hear you saying is, should we decide that we're going to agree on which county the nominee would come from, part of that would be a commitment to keeping both counties up to date with what's going on and treating applications of both counties as equally favorable.
I guess I was just reading the requirements for appointment here. And I guess, it'd be totally possible to have Jefferson County represent us or Boulder County.
Right.
What I would suggest and what I would urge is that, I understand your point. It does appear that since Buddy did it and then Ron did it, that there is at least a history of having Gilpin County have a member on there. Historically, Teller's had two. And usually a commissioner or usually one from that Southwest Regional Hospital Association or whatever it is. So they've historically had two. Their impact on to other counties, whether it's Fremont or El Paso, is obviously minimal compared to what Gilpin's impact is on its surrounding counties, simply because we create the better part of 95% of the gaming revenue in the state of Colorado. So that being said, and there was a time when I was referred to as the fourth commissioner of Clear Creek County. And I was over there so darn much trying to sway Fabian or whoever on the James Peak Wilderness that, we have a very close relationship with your county. And I would suggest that it's very important for Gilpin County to have a representative on there because of the amount of money that we generate and the hopes that that we could have some input and impact on those funds. But in like regard, I would also, you know, since I come from the district where the gaming is created, I would do this to make it fair. I would say, let's put Sandy on as a commissioner. And I will serve as your liaison.
I was thinking,
I will serve as Clear Creek
yeah,
County's liaison on this and make sure the deal is fair to them.
I think it's just one person would do both of those tasks, Webb. Actually, you know, I'm I don't know what the right word is, that you know, it's nice of you to say that, but I feel like I'm on so many committees now representing Gilpin and working, you know, with some of the commissioners here on today already collaboratively on other things that I'm not sure I would be able to give it my full time and attention at this point.
Well, then I will do it. I mean, I will put my name forward to be on that. And I'll also promise Clear Creek County that I will work with you. I mean, I did historically, I've worked with you, you know, a lot. And I have no problem. I used to go to probably a quarter of all the Idaho Springs City Council meetings too. So I'd be happy to do that. I do think though, in reality, that because of where the money is being generated out of, it sure is a good idea. And the fact that we have two that historically have come out of Teller, it's important that we at least have one that comes out of Gilpin County.
Well, what about, that's a great point. What about having one from Clear Creek and one from Gilpin?
I think there's only one seat open at this time.
Well, that goes back to a point I made here a minute ago. I think George said something about some mayor resigning and a replacement needing to be made. You know, that has to do with the cities that are impacted, or maybe it's Idaho Springs in particular. I know, Blackhawk and Clear Creek, or Blackhawk and Central City are excluded. You know, they can't be on it if they want to be on it.
Right.
And so that leaves only us one potential spot on that particular thing. And again, if Linda had 4 more years to go, I would then flip it over and recommend Linda, but she's term limited in 2 years. This is a 4-year gig, but maybe I'll try and convince Sandy here again in just a minute.
And George, I'm curious,
Do it for 2 years, but I don't think they'd like that.
and George, have you discussed about would it be a commissioner that you would propose from Clear Creek, or do you have another person that would be a potential representative for Clear Creek that would collaborate with Gilpin?
I know you addressed me and it looks like Randy wants to give you an answer.
Well, I was going to say that I kind of understand the dynamic that when the mayor of Idaho Springs, a municipal representative could come from anywhere too, in Gilpin County.
No, they're not. Central City and Blackhawk are excluded by
That's right.
Statute, right? But Idaho can have one.
About that. So, I mean, having that representation is important. That it does help to broaden that, as long as it is Idaho Springs. I feel like of all the counties that receive the impact, the contiguous counties, I'm just going to say, I think of the counties that receive the contiguous impacts of gaming more directly, at one point, and I don't know how that stands today, but at one point, for example, Idaho Springs and Clear Creek County provided a lot of the workforce in Central City and Blackhawk when they first started. And of course, as they've grown, that employment, the labor they need became greater and greater and greater as it developed. And so I don't know that that's still the case, that it's as big a percentage, but so both there were some positive, but also negative impacts that accrued to us, and it has a lot of it has to do with dealing with gambling addiction and other addictions that then are concurrent with that tend to it breeds a little more of a culture, and it's just one of the honest facts. It's one of the things that we deal with and the reason those funds are there. And so for that reason, we want to make sure that we have some effectiveness there. And also, again, as I stated earlier, that when Gilpin does have a representative there, that they're sensitive to that, empathetic really should be to that need, because it affects your own county as well. And so knowing that we're there and you wish to see that those benefits accrue to us is an important thing.
I agree with what you're saying. And I do think that, you could say there are 3 counties, probably in this descending order, Gilpin, Teller, and Clear Creek County, that are heavily impacted by gaming.
That's right.
Jefferson County is, and it's no bigger deal to them than Martin Marietta. There are impacts, but it's such a large county that the impact is minimal by comparison to what it is on your county, on our county, and down in on Teller County. Fremont might fall into that same category with those, might be actually 4 counties that are impacted enough that it makes a difference. But you guys are definitely impacted. We're definitely impacted. Teller's impacted, and like I say, maybe Fremont might be impacted. So I think we need to sort this out, make sure it's good representation. If I'm on it, I promise you I will give you good representation. I'll come to your commissioner meetings and talk to you if you want me to. I'll come and listen. Whatever I need to do. And then I think that, if we can, we need to support whatever other appointment they would make too.
So am I directing my questions to Randy now?
I don't think so. That's the way it worked. I think Sean just left, didn't he? He had to leave. He had a hard stop at noon. So, and just so you know, and I'll just pitch this in, is that I have a hard stop at 12:30 because we've got a meeting with CDOT and CDPHE. I've got one I'm going into today, and I've got to get out early for that and another meeting before it. So I'm sorry, but I've got another half.
Well, that's okay, because we also have to get back to our regular commissioner meeting at 12:30. We still have about half a meeting to go, plus an executive session. What I'm hearing is that we agree that Clear Creek needs to be heard and represented, and I'm hearing that Commissioner Sill is willing to do that. I know that he is very involved in our local politics, and I think he would be a good representative.
I was just going to ask if, just briefly, do you have any examples of an inequity that you feel like has happened with the gaming, with the limited gaming, and just because I don't know an example?
Well, I think rather than by the committee itself, it was more, I recall some legislative stuff that was some bills that were put out 2 years ago, I think 2 to 3 years ago, that were to create some additional share for contiguous counties. And I do know that from having attended and testified, that the gaming communities testified against and didn't want to see that happen, because they didn't want to see the pot they didn't want to see their share of the pot be diluted. And I feel like our share is small enough as it is. If you look at all the funds that do come back, public funds into your community, I don't begrudge those funds. I just want to know that the effects on our lives and our families and the economies of the families and things that are just some of the inevitable results of the industry, and it's known that, again, that's why the funds are there, that those are taken seriously by our neighbors. That's all.
Yeah, and I'll say in response to that my general impression is that we saw, and I don't have like hard data to back this up that I have access to right now, but we saw when gaming came to Gilpin County, human service addiction related issues on the rise in Clear Creek. we have also seen that our resources to manage those impacts has not been sufficient. And that's kind of the broad historic perspective. I also have this perspective that whereas that Clear Creek County, we don't choose to have those impacts, and we don't have any tools to mitigate them within our local jurisdiction, such as adjusting tax rates. And so I really do think that you combine those two things into my perspective that Clear Creek County could have better representation and get a better share of those funds than we have historically. And so I don't know where that's going. What it kind of sounds like is we might walk out of this saying that no matter who gets selected, we're going to try to do a better job at that. And that it might be that Clear Creek and Gilpin are going to prepare two separate nominations.
And regardless of what happens, I really appreciate Commissioner Sill's commitment, and I think all of your commitments to understanding and hearing what we're talking about today, and recognizing that as you know, sister counties or whatever we are here, I don't know, neighbors, that you would reflect on that and know that those are real needs, and that we'll count on your understanding because you're close enough to see it. You should be close enough to feel it, and you feel it yourselves. So
Yeah,
that helps a lot.
I just wanted to add to that. I had inquired both with Commissioner Engels and with our finance director about the way the allocations are set up now, and they can be changed with great effort. So perhaps the advisory committee representative can really push for a change in the way they're allocated now, because I know that it's being recorded, right? But I haven't understood why the DA is getting such a large share when the nonprofits, especially, the counselors, the mental health people, but the nonprofits are getting a smaller share. So that is something that the advisory committee representative could continuously push for.
I think the way that they evaluate impacts, because of the way they evaluate them, they tend to be reactive. And so it's kind of like fire, it's mitigation instead of prevention. And putting more investment into prevention and services that can help people out, as opposed to fund the jails that are the result of people getting in financial trouble and all kinds of things, would be helpful. And so it just seems like it's the nature of having to prove your impacts. And I will say it's kind of like economic sustainability and the environmental argument. You got to be able to measure it. And a lot of those things that happen are difficult to measure and say what came exactly from what. We know that the chemicals that are produced in your brain from hitting the jackpot on a slot machine are almost the same as the one you get from hits of most kinds of drugs. And doctors, medical researchers have proven that. And that's why those are so linked together, and why you see those happen around those areas. So recognizing that and being able to help people understand it and help our public health people be able to provide, prevention services and remediation services that go beyond just paying for jails and cops, it would be, I think, a good thing for all of our communities. That's my take.
Randy, you just got me thinking too, with your new clinic coming up. I met with Sean and with your fellow Rick, I think is his name, who's working on raising funds for that. But that might be a real good opportunity for us to partner with you as far as the mental health care aspect goes. I think that JCMH may have a place there. And then they also have a place in our new human services building. They'll have one dedicated office and then one shared office. We might be able to help address, some of the substance abuse and the addictions. And like you say, you shoot something into your arm, you have the same euphoria for a little bit. So how is the healthcare clinic coming? Is it chugging along?
It is.
It's coming along really well. I mean, they're putting stone on the exterior of the building as of yesterday.
That's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a tour yesterday, Linda. This is Keith. I did a tour
Hey, Keith.
yesterday of the facility, and I was very, very pleased, very impressed with the work that our contractor is doing, Alliance Construction. And we're ready to start drywall here either later this week or next week. So it's definitely taking shape. And according to Alliance, they hope to have a TCO or a CO probably mid to late July. That doesn't mean we're going to be moving in at that point in time, but when we get to a point of getting a certificate of occupancy, that means that we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel anyway. And we've been working with Centura. They're going to be the primary health provider on the first floor, and just trying to solidify agreements and understandings and expectations with Centura. We're in the process of doing that now. And then the second floor will be county services, public health, some human services, and we're also having some behavioral health up on the second floor as well. But to answer your question, we're very pleased with the progress that's being made.
That's wonderful.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. Abel has been our project manager for our new Human Services and Public Health building, and we dedicated that on the 17th of February. And maybe Abel can give you a little update, but we're also very close to seeing that be a living and breathing building now. So happy about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting ready to get our TCO or final inspection for certificate of occupancy this week. And so we're really close. We're hoping to have move in as early as this coming Monday. And so we're super excited about this project. Building a new facility would have cost us somewhere around $4 million. By doing it this way, it's going to cost us about $1.2 million to rehab the structure. So everybody's looking forward to having our public health department, our human services department, and some of our Jefferson Center for Mental Health folks having access to this facility really soon.
That sounds great. And I want to thank you, Linda. I had heard that you were participating in some of the fundraising stuff. I just want to say a lot of thanks to that. I mean, it's uplifting, and we look forward to this building improving the lives of, kind of like we were talking about with gaming, having some impacts across county lines.
Yeah. I think we really partner well. And Sean told me that Randy raised $1 million for your new facility. So I think Randy's the go-to guy here.
Right.
We're not keeping score, but if we were, he'd be winning.
I got lucky and scored a couple of the big ones. That's all. It was actually a little more than that, but I got to be the guy that went to the meeting to some people that came across big, and they're the people that really gave. It certainly it's not the feather in my cap. It's the Colorado Health Foundation and DOLA and the people that have really come through for us. And it's been the mineral impact stuff but the Colorado Health Foundation especially, and the Henderson Mine, and Freeport McMoran and some others that really come across big time. Chip Bear from Bojo's, and they deserve all the credit for having given what they gave.
That's great. Well, you can tell how important it is to the community. It's going to be a really happy day. You'll have to invite us over, and we'll have a glass of beer together.
Yeah. At the clinic. No.
Yeah. Well, then we'll check into the clinic.
It kind of dwarfs what we're working on over here, just briefly. So I'm on the Mountain Healthcare Task Force, and it's the second iteration of trying to bring a health clinic back to Gilpin County. And Abel's been on it in the past. He was on the first iteration and probably will get contacted about data. But ours is a proposal to partner with Clinica to bring a small part-time clinic so that we have something based up here to supplement the Netherland clinic. So I don't think we'll need $1 million, but if I do, I'll call you, Randy.
Yeah, we'll see. I may have run out of not that I don't want to be cooperative. I'm just saying I may have run out of lucky hits, you know. So.
Right.
A quick question. Are you getting your vaccines delivered to Clear Creek County? It seems like I heard that you were having some trouble with that.
We just got some great news on vaccines. It looks like we're scheduling usually we do them only on Wednesdays. We're scheduling Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because we're expecting to receive a number that'll put us back into equity around the state. And I don't know where you guys were on that list, but we were third last in the state as of last Tuesday, and we were kind of hot under the collar about it.
Yeah, we had received no new vaccines. We're getting our second doses, you know, because they have to do those, but we had no new vaccines for 2 weeks in a row. And then we've been kind of trickling in at about 100 at a time, other than we picked up some from Summit County, you know, because they had some excess after they vaccinated as many as they could of their 70 plus people and before they started expanding the pool. And so they sent 250 over to us, which was a godsend. But Jill Ryan with CDPHE, and CDPHE has been working and trying in the last couple of weeks to take care of that and restore equity. And she really went to bat for us in the last week and really dug in and worked with her staff to figure out. And they're picking up some Johnson & Johnson, and there's a kind of we think we know the number, but but I hate to state it because it's an indeterminate number that will help us. That will help us an awful lot, which is why we've scheduled. And the governor requires that when you receive them, that you've got to get them out within about 72 hours or just over that. You know, you've got to show that you're able to dispense them, administer them within that period of time. And if you don't, then they kind of take you off the list for a while and make sure somebody who can get them out is getting them. And so we've just got to make sure that if we accept a bunch, that we're able to dispense a bunch. And so that's why the big 4-day push coming up.
Yeah, great. Will that help you get caught up on your 70 plus?
I think we will have, our public health director stated that at that point he thinks that by the end of this weekend, everybody except some of the homebound folks that they're working on going to them will still be out there that they're on their things to do list. But otherwise, they think they will have everybody they've contacted they can find who's willing will have had the opportunity at that point.
Great. Well, you're ahead of us.
What's that?
No.
Said you're ahead of us.
I'm not sure what that means, Bob. Bonnie, so our public health person reported today that we have completed all the 70 plus who wanted it, and that we have 1,090 total vaccinations done, which is 681 first doses, 409 second doses. So the teachers have been included, and they started last week. They started on the 60, let's see, I guess it would be the 66 to, or maybe it's a 65 to 69, that category. They started offering those to some people.
We've closed the gap in the last 2 days, but I heard 3 days ago that we had vaccinated 70% of the 70-year-olds.
Well, as of today, we've exceeded it. Yay. So good luck with yours.
Is knowing how many you've really got too. I mean, there aren't really robust databases. The only one out there the best one I know of is the voter file, because you figure most people that are over 70 years old are registered to vote. It's hard to find any file anywhere, any piece of data that really lists everyone in your county with their contact information to be able to even get to them. And of course, when we're using newspaper and, you know, our website and social media and all of these ways to get the word out there, you know, our email lists and stuff like that. The reality is each one of those only touches a percentage of the county. And so those, you know, public relations tools might only reach between 25 and 50% at best of the people there. So knowing just making sure that everybody knows what the score is and how to get the vaccine is probably one of the hardest things.
Good point.
And it sounds like once the over 70% of 70 is accomplished, that triggers movement into the next level on the dial too. So that's a good thing. You're still in orange?
We're in blue.
You're in blue too. Okay.
Yeah. We just got there last week.
Oh, congratulations.
And the state doesn't want to take anybody beyond that till, from my understanding, until they've got the state pretty well under control, the whole state.
Yeah.
So we've got about 10 minutes left. I just checked the email with the agenda. It looks like you all had wanted to talk about an OHV bill.
I think Sandy had that on with no-co places.
Yeah, it was the one that Randy brought up.
Yeah, and I've got to check back in with Eric Bergman, because I noted that when we were going through bills the other day, it was not on the list at CCI, and I was kind of surprised because he told me that and it may be that we've already cemented approval. My understanding had been that CCI had already said that was a go, that even the outlying communities that have OHVs, it's really a local control issue as much as anything, that if in our county we want the laws to be parallel to the state law, then the law ought to stick. And that law was simply that there was a glitch between the motor vehicle laws and the OHV laws, in which the motor vehicle basically, it defined what you had to have to be a motor vehicle, to be legal and to be able to be licensed to drive on highways and county roads and city roads and stuff. And then it acknowledged that if you're licensed out of state, that those your license plates from out of state allow you to drive on Colorado roads, of course. Well, some states around us license OHVs as motor vehicles to drive on their county roads. And so what was happening was people were coming in from out of state with their OHVs and getting out and saying, I got a plate, and driving off on our county roads. Well, then what happened was some other people in the state realized they could go get their OHVs registered out of state. And now there have been actual companies pop up that you can go online and get your OHV registered out of state and get plates sent to you and then drive on our roads and get away with it. And then what happened was people started taking it to court when they got pulled over by the sheriff, and most of the sheriffs and DAs in the state threw their hands up in the air and said, we can't even enforce this stuff anymore because we don't know what's going to happen when we get to court, because they had conflicting court opinions. So, and the catch was that in the OHV law, it defined, they took the easy route and just said, well, an OHV is anything that can't be licensed. And that's where the mess up was. So now they're changing the law to read that an OHV, to be considered a motor vehicle, an OHV has to be able to be licensed in Colorado. It has to be legally, physically able to be something that we would license in Colorado in order to be able to drive on our county roads. And that should stop those conflicting court cases, so that our sheriffs will have the confidence that if they invest the money in writing a ticket and going to court, that it's going to stick. It's worth doing, And so it doesn't really take away anybody's rights. It just makes sure that if a county says they want to go by state law and that you can't drive those things on the road, that they have the ability to make it stick if somebody decides to do it anyway.
Right. And I know in our statewide commissioner meetings that it came up. I believe you explained it, Randy, and I didn't hear any opposition. I heard support, especially in our contiguous counties, because everyone wants the ability to enforce when people are in the wrong place, doing the wrong thing and being destructive, or,
and it doesn't take away
ignoring
it doesn't take away your power to legalize them on your county roads if you want to. Counties can still do that if you choose to. So,
and I did mention it to our Sheriff Armstrong, and he favored it in that it would allow them some enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any significant opposition.
Right.
I don't know that I don't know where it's at. I haven't been tracking it.
No, I haven't either lately. We've got
'Cause there was
sponsors
a-
and they're carrying it. We know that. What?
Because they mentioned the other day, they mentioned that separate one for OHV, but that was just for people to use it on their own property. So that was a whole separate deal.
Right.
Mhm.
What else is on the list there, George? We've got about 7 minutes left, I think.
I think we've covered it. Is there something that didn't make the list that somebody wants to bring up in these 7 minutes, or we can just?
Just a quickie. Have you heard back on the shooting range grant application?
The shooting range, right? To my knowledge, we have not.
Yeah.
And I think that we're all aware that we've been having some staff level meetings about what this looks like moving forward.
Yeah, I think the application was just submitted not too long ago, so we have not heard any response on the application yet, Linda. We feel pretty confident. I hate to say that and then blow our chances, but we feel pretty confident. And I see Lisa, so she can probably give us an update.
Lisa.
On the
Hi, Lisa.
Hello. We'll have to hold our breath. It will be a couple months before we hear anything. We'll have to, meanwhile, make the presentation. I believe that's in April.
Okay.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
And Lisa, did you explain to me when we met that this grant would help secure the next grant? They kind of play in together.
Yes, if we are successful with the CPW funds, they can be used as a match to the GoCo request that we'll make later for the other half, or 1.4 million.
We had some sticker shock around. Sorry, I just interrupted somebody. We had some sticker shock around the site and thought maybe it was our fault. We looked around the state and saw that we're just seeing that costs associated with these facilities are high. I mean, the Devil's Nose facility was much higher than the Forest Service originally thought. Just it's expensive to build out. And I don't know who it was that I interrupted, and I apologize.
I just said good.
Oh.
Well, as a new commissioner, I appreciate your work over the last 8 years, trying to come up with solutions, locations, funding, and everything. And, from what I'm reading and hearing and talking to all of you, Gilpin hasn't successfully, and I'm not anticipating they would be able to find a site within Gilpin. And I don't imagine that we could build a 15-lane site for $400,000. So I think it's another great example of a collaboration.
I agree. It's hard to cite these things. It's just hard to cite these things. The impacts are known and the costs are real, and the buildable property is kind of limited. That's another thing that we share is this topography of our lands where we just don't have a lot of space to build on.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I'm going to have to state that I have to go now because I've got to run upstairs for just a second, and then I have to start another Zoom meeting for some other people. And that's
Well, we probably need to also go so we can log back into our other meeting, but it's really been nice seeing you all, and
as always,
good partners and neighbors and friends.
You should. Yep. Hey, Peter, are you from Perot and Harry's district?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I said, are you from Perot and Harry's district?
No, I'm not.
Where, you from Joanne's or Fabian? Where are you from?
Right now, I live in Colorado Springs. I'm moving up that way at the end of March.
Peter's our county attorney.
Oh, welcome.
Yeah, sorry, maybe we didn't
Congratulations.
introduce at the beginning, and Webb, I've got to go now, but I just want to say I find it interesting that this is the first time we've ever met, and I moved here in November of '71.
Yeah,
And I know you've been around.
I bet you got a
My
buddy.
understanding was that you got here before rocks were made.
I bet you got a buddy that I have. You know, Renfro?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll
That's
let you go now. I need to go, but thanks. for
Okay.
the visit today.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
So while we still have a quorum, we don't have a quorum anymore. We are adjourned.
Thanks for your time. It was really fun.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
guys.
Yeah.